No. Yes.
Right.
So you guys need an alignment, not coaching.
The coaching industry has exploded.
We want to be better. We want to move forward and keep growing.
Uncoachable is going to be released every single month with a new coach, a new idea, a new approach, and a new takeaway. Hi, I'm Jon.
I'm Rhys, and he's Uncoachable. Hello and welcome to Uncoachable. My name is Rhys, and Jon, my co-host, obviously.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
It's a nice early record for us, and we're joined by Kim. Kim, welcome to Uncoachable.
Thank you for having me.
I guess we always start this by giving our guests an opportunity to tell us a little bit about themselves. We had a really good pre-call, and there's so much to dive into with you. But give our audience a little bit of an insight into who you are.
Okay, so I'll do the whistle-top story. So I left school at 15 to be a hairdresser. That's all I ever wanted. Set my first business up at 18, and at 24, lost the feeling in my hands and legs and had to quit, which was a bit of a, oh my goodness moment, because that's all I'd ever dreamed of. And so I got a temporary job as a cashier while I worked out what on earth do you do next when your dreams have just been snatched. And that took me into 25 years in financial services, worked my way up to the board, also worked in IT software, and then had another unfortunate illness when my little girl was 2, ended up in intensive care with double lung pneumonia, and realised I needed to do something different. I couldn't be a good mum, and I'm a single mum, and also do those big jobs and marry the two together. So I came out and I retrained. I quit my job and I retrained as a coach, and decided that after years of only having an MVQ in hairdressing, it didn't seem to hold me back, that I actually wanted to be properly qualified to say that I could do this, not just use my experience. And so I got qualified, then re-qualified to do Marshall Goldsmith coaching, and then re-qualified to do read facial expressions. And then that moved me into writing books, which moved me to the podcast and my TV show, which probably leads me to where I am now.
No, that was one of the things that really caught my eye when we were kind of looking at your website and everything, is the face whisperer kind of tagline that you had. What is that?
So it's basically, the research was done by Dr. Paul Ekman. It was back in 1968. And he identified that actually irrelevant of our age, race, gender or culture, we use the same combination of 43 muscles in our face to demonstrate the same 7 human emotions. He subsequently did a study that demonstrates even if you're born blind, you still use the same muscles to demonstrate the same emotions. And a micro expression lasts less than a second. And our emotional brain responds 24 times faster than our thinking brain. So by the time we think, don't show the emotion, it's too late, it's out there. And my reason for doing it was really to be a better communicator. So most problems in life come down to miscommunication or misinformation. And so I've been on a bit of a lifelong mission to try and be a better communicator. So for me, being able to spot that somebody might be anxious or somebody might be angry allows me to ask a better question, to create a safe space for them to share whatever's going on for them.
Now, how do you feel about that, Jon?
There's a couple of things. First off, I'm so impressed with your career journey. So the pivots. So first, following the dream, which I think is great, being able to embrace that, do what you love, and then due to no fault of your own, a situation that forced you to make a change, and then find another passion, and then again as well, right? So that your career journey, I think, is extraordinary. I think that's wonderful. And then the requalifications, becoming a coach. One of the things that we often talk about as we're trying to find good coaches is we don't know how to identify a good coach. And so talking about the recertification, the programs, the things that you're leaning into and learning and being able to share that led to this, the face recognition, the face whisper, I think is kind of quite interesting. That said, I'm suspicious about I love the idea of my face betrays me. Always. We all try to have a bit of a poker face, and I understand that the reaction, my face goes faster than my brain, I guess. So interesting idea, right?
But it's, and you might not get this reference, John, but it's very Darren Brown. You get that? Darren Brown is a very famous magician and illusionist, and he's one of those people who will do a show where he will manipulate people to act in a particular way, understand in micro emotions. I'm probably butchering the explanation of it, but it's kind of almost like there's almost an element of like wizardry to it. It's like in how he portrays it, but it sounds like there's a lot more science to it than maybe he just adds showmanship to it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you take away the showmanship and you just look at the science, it was actually, I guess, the best media reference is the TV program Lie to Me, because that's what it was all about. He was looking at body language and facial expressions and tells that allowed him to then ask better questions to get where people are going. And that's really what they're doing with it. They also use it in technology, facial recognition technology, in security, to demonstrate if people are looking anxious in airports, for example, because it's a good first tell for them to then look at other things. It is just there as a situation, context is everything. So, if you're demonstrating that you are scared and you're watching a horror movie, it's highly likely that that's true, and a likely expression. So it's really first to ask you to look at the wider piece. So I can see this emotion. So what else is going on? Is their tone changing? Is their body language changing? Are they using different words? So, for example, I was chatting with a client the other day, and when I asked them how they were, they went, "Oh, soldiering on." And I was like, well, soldiering on doesn't sound like things are going swimmingly. Because when you're soldiering on, you feel like you're in a battle. So are you really fine? It's like, no, I'm not. Great.
Trojans through the mud kind of thing.
So let's just peel that back and let's see how we can help. So what's really going on for you? And it really is there just to ask better questions, to be able to I guess, be actively curious. For me, one of the things that I think is such a shame is that we have been told to lose our curiosity. So as kids, we were full of wonder and curiosity, and then we got told not to do that anymore because we need to conform and fit into a box. But actually, curiosity is a superpower, because once you're comfortable and courageous enough to be curious about the answer, not wedded to being right about the answer, that's when real growth happens.
I wonder, you must tie curiosity to coaching then as well, because I like that we all try to be experts in what we do, and we portray that often, which gets into the imposter syndrome that you're going to talk about as well. But that curiosity piece for us allows us to lean in, and as you say, the face whispering gives indications of some of these key emotions. I think that's brilliant. I don't know if you're able to take a look at Rhys and I and sort of get some insights in regards to from body language to the way we position each other. I mean, I don't know if you've got any clues or hints or something.
To be fair, you're just a little bit far away.
So move a bit closer to the camera.
Because the micro expressions are so tiny that you've got to be really up close to be able to see the person.
That's why I put my sunglasses on. I've got my headphones on. I make sure that I can keep the guys going.
Like a COVID mask as well.
I love it. But it really is. Is that for me, one of the things is we, as leaders, I think that's probably been my first foray into it, was as leaders, we've been told we have to be right, and we've told we have to know all the answers. And so we've got a deplorable lack of curiosity about anything else because we're too busy trying to demonstrate that we know it, which is what drives that imposter syndrome. Because what if we don't really know all of it? What if that person knows something we don't know, and they might shame us? They might call us out on it. And so actually, how do we start to be more curious as leaders, where we're able to go, actually, it's more important to me that the right thing is done than it is that I'm right. Mm-hmm. And that takes quite a journey. And when we think the way we've been taught to lead has been, you need to know all the answers and never show vulnerability. Vulnerability is weakness. Mm-hmm. But actually, I spent many years thinking that I had, definitely in my imposter syndrome years, I thought I made my career out of asking dumb girl questions. because I'd go into organisations and go, can I ask why we do that? And why are you doing this piece? And my favourite question to ask in any organisation is ask every person in it, what is the daftest, dumbest thing we make you do every day? Because I guarantee that's where all of the low-hanging fruit is. Because they think you know. And you've got no idea they're doing it because it's silly.
Yeah.
It's become gospel. People believe that you know that. And so I now realise, because I'm working my way through the imposter syndrome, is actually it wasn't asking dumb girl questions. It was asking curious questions. It was willing to be educated by the people that I worked with, as well as being an educator of the people I worked with. So recognising it's a dual role.
You must love the answer to the why do you do that? Because we've always done it. You must love that response.
Yeah.
Right? So internally, sorry, go ahead.
So it's one of those questions where you're like,
yeah.
And if we were to quote Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here won't get you there.
Right.
It's usually my answer to when people say we've always done it that way. I was like, what got you will not get you there.
You usually get where you're heading.
I got to ask, who's Marshall Goldsmith? We've only done 7 episodes. We're new into the coaching world.
Oh, you're being curious. I love this.
I'm
actually
curious. I was like, I'm going to be curious. And
I'm pretending I know.
You've quoted him twice, and I've sat here going, yeah, Marshall Goldsmith.
Yeah.
so tell us. It sounds like it's had a big impact on you.
Yeah. So he's probably one of the best known and longest standing business coaches. He's in his 80s now. And he's just got such a passion about business and people and about leaning into that and recognizing. So one of his coaching pieces is actually not just about coaching the individual, but he does this stakeholder based coaching where actually you include the stakeholders of the individual being coached to help them have a real 360 view of the impact they're having and the impact they want to have. And there's the dog.
Rhys, stop it.
Just for the listeners, we were fully expecting this dog to go off at some point. So it's all good.
And at least proudly coming to let me know that he's told the neighbour not to come home.
Luckily, he's very cute and he's more than welcome on the show.
He's very curious.
Yeah, he's being curious. Exactly.
Good lad. Fabulous. So I guess I got introduced to him when I first started looking into coaching, and then trying to overcome my previous, having made it up to the board with only my MVQ in hairdressing. I spent a lot of years being put forward for future leaders to be followed by filling in forms where people would go, "Where's your degree?" I'm like, "Well, I don't have that." "Where are your A-levels?" "Well, I don't have that either. I've got an MVQ in hairdressing and you put me forward." So I'm not quite sure where we're here. That when I moved into coaching, I wanted to ensure I was qualified, that I knew what I was doing. And I didn't just go, well, hold on, I've got 28 years experience running multi-million pound global organizations. That doesn't necessarily mean I can coach anybody else, or that I can know the difference between whether you're coaching somebody, whether you're mentoring them, whether you're just advising. Very often I find with my clients, I do all three because that's what they need at the time. Sometimes they don't want to be coached. They just want to have a safe space to be able to think aloud. And I guess for me, I see it much more about partnering with them to help them in whatever way they need.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's helpful for people to have that comfort. I struggle with that notion of even things like therapy that's built around just asking questions, where typically you're going for support and answers, and you're just getting questions. And so it's how do you sort of get to that solution state if you're just being asked questions? It assumes that the answers are somewhere in me, which gets back to not being curious. I already know all the answers.
Yeah, you just haven't dug deep enough, kind of thing. I wanted to talk to you about the imposter syndrome thing. When we chatted was something I really kind of identified with, and we kind of chatted about for a while. So the idea that you were launched into this kind of environment where everybody else had that kind of university degree, and you were kind of more than like capable and rising through the ranks, but you carry their own baggage yourself, I guess, and hyper aware that other people might perceive you differently because of it. that kind of led you then to set up, was it International Imposter Syndrome Day? Tell us a little bit about that, because I really feel like you lean into that aspect, makes you have a lot of empathy as a coach, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, our reason for setting it up was the first step to overcoming it is to tell somebody about it. But that's the one thing you won't do when you're suffering, because your biggest fear is that people are going to find out that you're a fraud. And if you tell somebody you feel like a fraud, they're definitely going to find out. So you don't do it. So you stay in your own head, which is not the greatest place to be, because at that point, you're not being kind to yourself and you're not being honest with yourself. And I guess mine came from, I remember at probably my darkest days of my imposter syndrome. And I was given a coach. I was my first ever coach. And I was convinced I was giving them because I was hopeless. Because I was hopeless. So I remember he sat down with me and he said, tell me why you think I'm here. And I said, because I'm not very good at my job. And he went, okay. Do you have any facts to support that? I went, no, but at least I know. So I'm not completely hopeless because at least I understand that. And he went, right. He said, is there any facts that you might be good at your job? I went, no, none. It's like, okay. Can I give you some facts? And I was like, yeah, please, anything. Like, I'm just desperate. And he was like, okay, so haven't you just done your third consecutive quarter of double-digit growth? And I went, yeah. And he went, and isn't your team engagement the highest in the global company? And I went, yeah. He said, in fact, isn't it higher than the 5-year aspiration? I went, yeah. It was like, and haven't you just been awarded Leader of the Year? And I said, yeah, that's true. He said, so with these facts, he said, do you still think you're hopeless at your job? And I went, yeah. So, and I only shared that to give you just how disconnected I was from where I was, from what I was doing and where I was going. And he asked me to do this one thing, and I recommend it to everybody. It's a real eye opener. I had to go and ask friends, family, colleagues, people I trusted, and say, really be honest with me, because this is about, I'm really determined to develop myself. Can you tell me 1 or 2 things you admire and 1 or 2 ways where I get in my own way? And when it came back, it was almost unanimous that I was brave and fearless. And I was like, I don't understand that. I live in fear every minute of every day, fear of being found out, fear of looking stupid, fear of not knowing the answer, fear of not fitting in. I said, can you explain it to me a little bit more? And they said, yeah, you will literally up sticks and move to somewhere where you know nobody for a job you're not convinced you can do. And I went, uh-huh. And then that's brave and fearless. And I went, that's interesting. I've always thought you thought I was flighty and a little bit stupid. So same lived experience. And yet the people looking in saw brave and fearless, and the person looking out saw flighty and stupid. And so I realized that actually there was something to be said about borrowing other people's belief. And it really hit home to me when I had a call from a leader of mine I really aspired to be like, really great with people, driven, like real success in business, and a great leader. And he rang me up and he was telling me all these lovely things that I'd done. And I remember on the call going, if only you knew what I knew. If only you knew. And then I stopped for a moment and went, hold on a second. So this guy who you aspire to be like, you've decided that your opinion, that you're not good, is more credible and more worthy than his opinion that you are good. And that really made no sense to me, because I certainly didn't value my opinion more than I valued his. And so I was like, I'm going to borrow his belief, and then I'm going to do everything in my power to not let him down. And it started me on that journey of learning to reframe the negative connotation in my brain, and look for where can I build belief for myself? Where can I borrow other people's belief in me, to allow me to do things that I would never have thought possible.
I like that. I like that a lot. We're often there's the person that you think you are. There's the person that somebody else thinks that you are, and then there's usually the person that you are. And the imposter syndrome fits somewhere in all of those gaps. I do struggle with the notion of the being a syndrome, because I think we're all there. I think we all have the negative voices in our head that say, I'm not able or capable. I'm not always brave and fearless. And that gap that goes, I don't think I can do this. I think I'm putting on airs. I think I'm faking this. I think I've got the imposter syndrome. I think that's a human condition to a degree. A lot of the times it is confidence or self-doubt. Sometimes it's recognizing my skills gaps that I need to sort of hone up on it and improve. but it sort of feels like that. It feels like a human condition to me, for all of us. We all have self-doubt and we all have skills gaps.
I completely agree, Jon. And for me, I mean, it was badged that back in 1978 when it was identified at the time as a female-only phenomenon. We now recognise it can impact anybody of any age, any gender, any race, any culture. And actually, for me personally, I don't think the imposter syndrome label helps us, because then we just label it as that's all right because I've got that. Whereas actually, I think it comes into the fact that everything these days is on a spectrum of some kind. I think we're all of us on a confidence spectrum. And at different points, we are more or less confident. So for me, authentic confidence is when my ability and my belief are in absolute harmony. And when my imposter is at its highest, my ability is greater than my belief in my ability. So I'm just misaligned. And it can be situational. When I'm making beans on toast for my little girl, pretty confident I can nail that.
I've managed to mess that up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think it's those bits that sway. And I think we've got to, for me, I wonder if it's almost more a symptom of being an insecure overachiever, because we feel the most like an imposter when we've achieved something we're not really sure we should have done, or we're not really sure we own. And it's getting ourselves into that, being able to see in ourselves what others can see in us. Because when somebody asks you to do something, they do that because they believe in you. Because if they didn't believe you were going to be successful, not only do you look silly, they look silly. And as human beings, we don't want to be silly. So we don't try and set ourselves up for failure. We try and set ourselves up for success. But imagine the impact it would have, bearing in mind we know that 70% of the world at some point feel imposter syndrome. Imagine the impact we'd have if, when we ask somebody to do something for us, we tell them why we believe they're going to be successful. Because in that moment, if they're not believing it, they can borrow our belief, and the impact can be immense.
It really makes me think. There's a moment like that is really distinct in my head. I was really, when I was in my early 20s, I was very ambitious and got very lucky. And I produced a TV show. And I was a co-producer and director on the show. And I couldn't believe that I was like in my mid-20s and I had this opportunity just to make it. And I remember we just finished like all the sound mix and everything, and we'd just like got everything signed off with the BBC exec. And I remember walking out of the mixing studio and onto the street and just going, I can't believe I got away with that. They're going to find out. And it goes out on TV next month and everyone's going to know. And I was terrified up to that first month. And then it went out and nothing happened. And I was like, okay, great. Well, maybe we managed to pull this off. And I think it wasn't until we did like 4 or 5 seasons of the show that I was starting to go, no, maybe I can do this. Maybe there's a future in this. But it's totally relatable for so many. I think everyone has an element of that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we create, I call them I am statements, and we create them at the age of 7, and we enforce them at the age of 14, and we embed them at the age of 21. And unless we go back and look at them, they become the silent blueprint of the operating system to our life. And for me, I mean, I'm 52 now, so they would last have been looked at 31 years ago. Can you imagine letting your computer or your phone run on 31-year outdated software? You just wouldn't do it, would you? And yet we do let ourselves do it unless we go and do the work to say, is that still true? What have I learned in the last 31 years that could add to what I knew in my early years that gives me a different perspective?
That's wild. I've heard people speak about, if I'm the same person at 50 that I was at 20, what have I done for the last 30 years? I've wasted 30 years. I should grow, develop, and change, right? But interesting to think that operating system, that your core values or your core elements are established at such a young age.
It's like the negative side of keeping it real.
Right.
It's like, yeah. But I think often what I find when you're coaching people, including yourself, is very often you're healing the unhealed inner child. The part that says, when we get into a state where we're feeling less confident, that's when our inner child tries to take over. And yet, would you really want your child to be running some of the situations that you find yourself in now you're an adult. You don't. And so it's kind of taking back that control as an adult and looking at it and going, well, is that what I want to think? Have you ever replayed something that you vividly remembered and you knew it went a particular way, and you're talking about it with somebody who was there and they have a totally and utterly different recollection of what happened? And that's because they viewed it from a different perspective. Because, Jon, just like you said, there's who you are, there's who you think you are, who people think you are, and who you actually are. The same's true of the truth. There's always three sides. There's my side, there's your side, and there's what actually happened. Because we will both have layered it with what we made it mean, because our emotional brain has responded to what happened and made it mean something to us.
Do you have any kind of stories from coaching experiences, and like, you don't have to name names, where either where that imposter syndrome side of things and your insights and empathy for it have kind of really changed for a client?
Yeah, I've had a few, and a large part of it is first giving people the space to explore for themselves, and that can take a while, because to start off with, one of the hardest things is people need to trust you, because they're about to tell you their darkest secret, the thing that they've hidden inside and been desperately trying to ensure nobody else ever finds. So what you find is people will start to tell you a little bit. They'll tell you a little bit more. And then probably a few sessions in, they're actually now able to trust that what they say to you doesn't go anywhere else, that actually you are just a trusted space to be able to share that with. But I had one client who they came to me off the back of having seen my TEDx, and they were like, "Well, actually, we think you might be able to help us. We think might resonate." What they started off telling me was the problem was nowhere near what the problem was later on, and they had, despite all of the accolades, despite all of the things that they had achieved, they didn't see the success in themselves. They still felt unworthy. And so it was really helping them to kind of like view that from different angles. So do you think the person who gave you this was credible? Yeah. Do you think they know what they're doing? Yeah. So why do you think they gave it to you? Like, I'd not really thought of that. So this person happens to be like hugely successful in their own business. They were previously very successful running corporates. They've now ended up on a TV show where they are an expert talking about the industry within which that they run in. And even though they got that far, they doubted themselves. And so it was crippling almost before they went on. But being able to pull that back, and one of the things that I recommend is that everybody gets themselves a Thrive Hive. So a Thrive Hive is your 4 or 5 people, and they all play a slightly different role. But they're the people that will be really honest with you and have absolutely got you back. So when you're in those moments where that imposter takes over, you can call them up and they're gonna help you. For me personally, in my Thrive Hive, I've got the person who doesn't sugar the pill. That when you need that tough love kick in the pants that says just get on with it. But I've also got somebody who is going to be a little bit more empathetic with me in the moments where I'm not quite ready for tough love yet. And I'd really like to have somebody else who can sit with me. And I think that's one of the other things that I guess I personally think is really important for people. And it's one of the things I do as a coach is very often people don't want the problem solving immediately. They want the ability to sit with somebody who's going to give them the space to work through the problem, to just share it. Because there's nothing worse than, somebody leaps straight in and solves the thing that's been driving you mad for months. It doesn't make you feel any better about yourself because you're like, they solved it in 37 seconds. I've been terrified about this for 3 months. So listening to not interject, to not resolve, to really ask the person, what would a good outcome look like for you? I've got some people phone me up and go, do me a favour. Just put the phone on speakerphone, go and make yourself a cup of tea and come back in about 10 minutes. I just want to rant. I'm like, okay, rant away. I clearly don't leave them like that. But what they mean in that is I just need to be able to deal with it without thinking through how it's going to land, how it's going to be perceived, what you're going to think about it. I want first to be able to release the emotion, and then I'll be in a space where I can actually talk about it and find some help.
That's a learned skill for many of us, where we want to solve problems. And I'd heard that when you get stuck in the mud, the last thing you want to do is somebody to come and pull you out of the mud. You just need somebody to sit down in the mud for a little bit and figure out. Otherwise, you're just going to slip back in there. But to be able to empathize, to be in that same space, not to solve the problem, but to hear the problem and to see the problem and to feel the problem. So I think that's wonderful advice. I've got two questions out of there.
Yeah, go for it. No, I was just going to say how much I love the Thrive Hive.
Well, that's actually what I was trying to get back to, because I think, Rhys and I can just think about how many toxic friendships we have that are not necessarily safe, trusted spaces. No, you've talked at length about the crueler somebody is to you, the more they like you.
I think that's a British thing where you just kind of like call each other terrible names is like a thing of endearment. But no, I do think finding those voices like in your life that are just kind of really honest, and I think my wife has always been a really good, honest voice. Like when I was doing that TV show, when I was kind of, she would go, I really enjoyed that one last night, and the week later she'd watch the show and go, that one wasn't as good as last week. But and I really appreciated that feedback, because everybody else around me was going, you're so wonderful that it's on TV, well done. I like that she was just like, I personally didn't enjoy that episode as much, and I think that impartiality can be so important sometimes to like keep you kind of grounded.
Well, you trust that feedback. You know that they're being honest.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not like, it's not being mean. It's just kind of being honest. Like, so, but I try and do that to Jon all the time. I try and take him down a few pegs. So.
He says brutally honest all the time, and I'm like, why? It doesn't have to be brutal. It just be honest.
Sorry, you had another question as well, Jon.
No, I'm well, back to the Thrive Hive, because I think this is a wonderful takeaway for us. If we were to coach ourselves based on some of the information you've given us, actually, there's a lot, but the Thrive Hive notion is something that I like, that notion of our tighter community, broader than what we typically have. And you mentioned 4 or 5 people, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, who do I actually put into that group? How broad? How diverse? How where do I start?
I think probably the more diverse, the better.
Yeah.
And also, like, I avoid relatives. I personally, because I always feel like family can always be so hard to get impartial.
I feel like we should dig into this.
Yeah. Is there like a guideline? Do you almost need to like assemble a team like the Avengers? Or
I'd agree. I'd avoid family. Not saying your family aren't going to be wanting to see you thrive, but they're already wanting to see you thrive. So this allows you to have that safe space that says, I don't need to worry that I bear it all, and I'm about to sit next to them at the Christmas dinner table. We know she's not in a great place right now. But for me, I picked kind of quite a diverse group. So they're from different. Some people are people I've worked with. Some people are people I've just met on my journey. Some have been people that you just connect with, and you go, I trust that this person would be honest, and would be honest with my best intentions. Almost that. I always say it's that critical best friend, the one who tells you that your bum looks big in it before you go out, not when you've actually spent all day trotting around thinking you look amazing. It's that person who loves you enough that they're going to be honest with you, and therefore you can trust that it comes from that position of care, because that you need to trust it for you to be able to open up to it. And one of the nicest things that ever happens is when people ask you to be part of their Thrive Hive, because it means you've earned that space. You've earned that space that they're going to use it in their weakest moments, and therefore for them to trust you enough that you are part of theirs. For me, is probably one of the greatest gifts. I'm very lucky. I'm in quite a lot of people's Thrive Hive, and I always feel very honoured when I'm asked.
That's amazing.
I'm really stuck on something.
What are you stuck on?
Well, I think I came back and I said, what do you think of my haircut? And you were like, oh yeah, it looks good. I'm not sure whether you're being truthful or not, but then I'm
You
thinking,
just need to whisper my face. You'd be like, I was going to ask about that. Is you've given us, we always ask for some like takeaway advice at the end. And I feel like with the imposter syndrome, the Thrive Hive is fantastic. Is there anything, if people are interested in like the more micro emotion studying aspect, is there any kind of, like simple like starting points for people where they can kind of go down that rabbit hole if they want?
Yeah, so I guess one of the ones that I share, particularly in leadership a lot, because it can be quite helpful, is if the person's smiling at you and only one side of their face goes into the smile, so it's like just like, that means they are demonstrating contempt either for themselves or for you or for what's happening. So it can be useful to ask better questions around that, because particularly if it's in a job interview, if they're demonstrating contempt, you want to dig into that to understand, is it around the questioning? Is it around where it's sitting? And the other one, it's the closest you're going to get to somebody lying. There isn't one to detect lying, but the closest you're going to get is disgust. And disgust is where you wrinkle this part of your nose, and it can be really slight. And that's because we've all, no matter whether we choose to be liars later on, we were all brought up knowing lies are wrong. And therefore, we are slightly disgusted that we're about to do something that we know that is wrong. And so one of the things they get people like me to do is watch videos of famous people being interviewed and say, what's really going on? What are they really saying? Where are they really showing anger or happiness or contempt? But for me, they're probably the two that are helpful to watch out for, particularly from a personal point of view. If it's in a personal relationship, if someone's lying or they're showing contempt, then it helps me be slightly more conscious of what's going on elsewhere. So what else is going on in their body language? And again, context is key, because it could be that they're just chatting to you normally and you've happened... I live near the countryside. You happen to be driving past a field and it's not very pleasant. The disgust may not be about the conversation. It may be about the context. But I think that's always kind of helpful.
That worries me. So in my 40-year-old face, I'm starting to see wrinkles appear, and I have a very distinct one there. So I'm just maybe go around the place.
A lifetime of disgust.
Lifetime of disgust.
I've got this is wonderful. I'm suspicious on the smirk, the half smile. I have a tendency to do it. I think it's because I'm lazy and don't want to do a full smile or give you the credit for a good.
You smile so much you need to rest half your face, like a shark never sleeps kind of thing.
But I love the notion of the face whisperer, although I'm still struggling with the language of the face whisperer. But because I think you're right. There are so many cues that we all share with each other. Language is not about the words that you use. It's about all of the other things, from body language to expression to tone. But then the other thing, which is the imposter syndrome, which is good credibility and understanding that it is a human condition. It's broad. We all have it. But when it sort of holds you back or stops you, or you get stuck in that space, how do I get out of it? Which gets into the Thrive Hive notion. And I did jot down avoid family, and I'm hoping that I attach that to Thrive Hive, not just in general. But I think, there's a lot here for us to sort of dig into.
Yeah. So Kim, where can people find more information on you if they kind of would like to reach out or dig a little deeper?
So you can find me at AuthenticAchievements.com, or I'm pretty much on all social media as Kim-Adele 10 or Kim-Adele Randall. And just reach out if you've got a question. I've got some free resources. So if anybody is struggling with that inner imposter, there's an easy 3-step guide to reframe your thinking that just allows you to catch yourself in that moment and then change what you're saying to yourself. By all means, I happily will share. And if it's useful, I can send it over to you and you can put it in the show notes if that would be helpful to your audience.
More than happy to. Yeah, that'd be great.
Please do. That would be great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yep.
No, thank you.
All right.
I've really enjoyed it.
The best place to find this podcast is wherever you find podcasts.
That's where I'd start.